Welcome to episode 88, I think, 88, 89 of Organizations
88.
Win Championships and Odyssey podcast about your Chicago Bulls. I'm Dan Bernstein along with Jason Bernstein and our producer, Spencer Ray. And we are joined today by Cody Westerlund of Odyssey's Sports Radio 670 The Score. He covers the Bulls on a regular basis, and he is also our intrepid web editor who is going to start dealing with my weekly Bears columns now. So good luck to him in that regard. Cody, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to this Bulls talk, Bulls season. I think we're all looking forward to the Caleb Williams debut as well before we dive into the NBA. But great time of year, no doubt about that.
I think we're all looking forward to the Bears slightly more, but just going to address the elephant in the room.
Significantly more.
But we have a job to do.
I'm wondering from Cody now, when you look at this state of the roster, the latest acquisition we have is that Chicago native Talen Horton-Tucker has joined the team, and we're getting a sense now of what this full roster is going to be. And we talked a little about it in our last episode, but rather than look at it positionally, I think it's important to look at who's going to do what, regardless of position. Where's the ball going to be? What's the first unit? What's the second unit? How do you see it?
Well, the starting unit to me is probably going to be Vooch, Pat Williams, Zach LaVine if he's not traded, Kobe White, and Josh Giddey. Now, we can have a discussion if something other than that would look better, but I think that's the clubhouse leader when you look at the starting lineup just because of the veteran experience in play, the contract issues in play, what they gave up for Josh Giddey, what Kobe White has improved on and meant to him. I think the interesting parts are behind him, who gets minutes with a lot of bodies, a lot of people who have a lot to prove, or who are perhaps just still awkwardly here, like Torrey Craig, for example, could have gone on to greener pastures probably and joined a contender, but picked up the player option to stay in Chicago. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. And I don't think it's going to look the same throughout the year or even throughout the course of 2-3 weeks at a time when we break up games into chunks. And I mean that certainly for the second unit and the first unit as well, depending on Zach's future. And as the year goes along, because I think we all know the Bulls are not in line to compete for a playoff berth this year, and they'd benefit greatly from retaining their top 10 protected first-round pick that they do owe the Spurs. So that could lead to great shenanigans later in the year. But off the top, I mean, is that what you're looking at for the starting lineup too on those guys? Or are you guys thinking something different?
I wouldn't expect anything else other than that. The concern I have is just the amount of forwards that are on the roster, especially after the signing of Talen Horton-Tucker. But now there's Kenny Lofton Jr. and Matas Buzelis and Chris Duarte, who I feel like I forgot about already. And I would assume who can kind of fill into a wing role if you need him to. They have so many guys like that, but that is the way the NBA is trending with more 6'7" athletic guys. Although I don't think Talen Horton-Tucker is the most athletic, but it is trending in a more positionless game. And it's going to be a weird season, but in a way I'm kind of glad because I feel like they're finally not stuck in the middle anymore. I hope they don't overperform, because then they would be in the middle and jeopardize that pick that they owe the Spurs. But I would not mind them being bad and just seeing the young guys play well. And I don't want to see too much of Zach LaVine, but we'll see what happens.
Have we gotten a corresponding move for Talen Horton-Tucker yet? And I don't even know if it's official. I guess it's not. But I'm just wondering what we expect that to be. Would that be bid him off the roster, perhaps?
I don't think we need a corresponding move because they can bring up to 21 bodies to training camp. And that's why we'll try to get clarity, too, as we get closer to media day, which is September 30th. But these national reporters frame things in various ways. Sometimes they'll say it's an Exhibit 10 contract. Sometimes they say it's a one-year contract. Well, technically, Exhibit 10 contract can be a one-year contract. You know what I mean? So this might just be a training camp contract, certainly, in which case Talen Horton-Tucker, Kenneth Lofton, these guys can compete for that 15th roster spot with the team, as you pointed out, who's on a non-guaranteed deal. And you also have the Zach aspect, but you'd expect if they trade Zach LaVine, they'd get one guaranteed contract back, at least in that trade. So that'd probably be more of a swap out if something happens there. So to me, this is a lot of people, a lot of bodies with the chance to prove it for the 15th roster spot in training camp and see what happens. And then they can always put them on their G League team as well in that case, if they like what they've done but don't have a spot for them yet. So that's what I'm looking at there. I don't consider those guys to be in the rotation mix yet as you look ahead to early in the season. But if they prove something or go to the G League and come back, maybe they're in the mix later.
I would love for him to be in the G League just to talk to him about LeBron. I'm kidding. No, I think it would be fun, but we'll see. I don't know. Nobody knows. And do I think it'll make a difference on how the season will go? Not at all. So
no, there's very little that, and Dan has pointed this out on multiple occasions. There's very little that's going to move the needle on the Bulls' record this season, because when you look at the biggest storyline on the team, Zach LaVine's future, he in and of himself is not someone that's moving the needle on wins or losses in a drastic manner, right?
Because he sucks.
This is not DeMar DeRozan,
no, he doesn't.
who's winning games and keeping them in it. This is a guy who's proved for the Bulls, certainly, to be a prolific scorer when surrounded with the right talent and efficient. And when not, he's been on a lot of losing basketball teams. So, I think one of the most fascinating things, and this is kind of barroom conversation, is I set the over-under on 21 and a half games for Zach LaVine to appear for the Bulls this year. Would you take the over-under?
21 and a half?
Yeah.
I think it depends. Personally, I think it depends how gutsy they are based on multiple scenarios that we've discussed in this space about whether or not they would be willing to stare down a way to not play him. Of course, complicated by the fact that technically he's a star player. Yeah. So you would have to get some sort of special dispensation or some workaround to do that. And it makes it highly unlikely at this point. Now, I like the idea, and I don't want to steal your thunder here, Cody, but we were talking about this just in the hallway the other day about an outside the box possibility that may allow you to keep his value up toward the deadline and not expose anybody to unnecessary risk, and maybe allow everybody to be happy to get him out of here.
Bring Zach LaVine off the bench is what you're referring to, Dan.
Yes.
And I got to be honest, I would find it, as a reporter, I would find it so entertaining. I would love that, right? Because it sets up for hard feelings, drama, front office showdown with the star player who haven't seen eye to eye before. I actually think it would be very healthy for the basketball team when you talk about the goals they seek to achieve, and that's to trade Zach LaVine, show he's healthy, and show he can be efficient offensively, right? I do not buy into this narrative that there's anything for Zach to prove as a basketball player, who he is, other than he's healthy. And by extension of being healthy, I expect he'll be an efficient basketball player, right? Because he almost always has been when he's fully healthy or close to it. So he can accomplish those coming off the bench. Do I expect the Bulls to do this? No. Do I understand why they wouldn't? Completely understand. But there's wisdom. I don't think it's just like a crazy conspiracy theory. I actually think it's legitimately worth a conversation in their front office among basketball pundits on sports talk radio and podcasts. Now, I think Zach would take it very poorly. His whole career, right, has been him usually viewing himself a level above from what he is. And I understand that. And he
earned at least one level. Yeah.
Yeah. He earned his $215 million contract, but it doesn't mean you're a traditional max player that leads teams to the playoffs. And he has viewed himself, like you said, a level or two above in many cases. And look how offended he got in, was it November 2022 when Billy pulled him off for a 4 or 5 minute stretch late in the fourth quarter of one game, one time, for him to come off the bench permanently for a month or two or deeper into the season, I'm sure would create a fiasco at some point. But if he really, really wanted to prove he's a team player, to rekindle the narrative around him in the Olympics where he was running side by side, flanking Kevin Durant, doing his job off the bench and playing defense and just finishing some plays. He could do that in that role. Again, just don't expect it, but it would be really fun, guys.
I also think if Zach were to come off of the bench for the team itself, it allows other opportunities for players that would otherwise not be in the starting lineup. It gives Ayo Dosunmu a chance. Say they move Williams down, and Buzelis is tearing it up for a little bit. They put Buzelis in there and they just kind of rotate starting lineups. I think from a viewing perspective and from a developmental perspective, I think that could be really fun and valuable for those guys to start a couple of games here and there, because we know Zach LaVine can start basketball games, and all things considered, he is a starter in the NBA, even though I really am I'm just not a huge fan of his in general. I don't hate him, but I don't really like him. And I think it would be fun to see different lineups other than just the standard Giddey, Kobe, Zach, Williams, and Vooch.
Yeah, I want to clarify the basketball point, right? I just said how much fun it would be just for like dinner theater and the theatrics of it and the headlines. Basketball-wise, here's the point. The Bulls are going to be atrocious at defense if they start the starting five. We expect them to start Zach, Kobe, Josh Giddey, whatever you want to say.
Patrick Williams and nobody
is guarding a small forward. It's not going to go well. They're going to have trouble defending quick point guards, no doubt. If you plug, like you said, you could have Buzelis if you want to go the rookie route. If you want to open up some small forward minutes for Julian Phillips, who's a little bit better of a defensive player, or Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig would be the guy who could nominally start, play a few minutes, and you'd be better at defense in your starting lineup. And you would just kind of share those shots to Kobe, to Patrick Williams. You'd really elevate his offensive opportunity. And Vooch is going to get his 12 or 14 shots, whatever he wants to have per game at center. So he's still going to get those.
And
in that
miss
case.
all of them.
So that's the basketball aspect of it, is give Giddey, Patrick Williams, Kobe White more runway if Zach was not in the starting lineup.
I'm trying to figure out the way that AK is thinking about LaVine's value, because it seems like they kind of screwed the pooch on this thing already. That Zach is the cake is baked, where, and any other metaphors you want to throw into this, that he does what he does. We know when he does it, against whom he does it, and what it means to him. And I'm always mindful of the loss to the Pistons last year when Zach has 50 and
zero assists.
And they just kind of don't have a chance late. And it was the other Pistons game where he's shooting a 2 when they need a 3. And
it's also the Pistons. I'm sorry, but it's also last year's Pistons.
Yeah, I don't, and I just think we may be managing or trying to manage the unmanageable here, where Zach is what he is, and if somebody wants what he is, they'll trade something for him, just enough to make it palatable to get him out of there.
Yeah, and the question is who, right? Like, that's always been the question. The Bulls, at least one of their theories is that they probably could have traded him if he didn't need season-ending surgery just before the trade deadline last season, which, look, Zach, he put his health first and foremost. The fact that it ensured that he wasn't going to be traded to the Pistons was, I'm sure, helpful for Zach's career at that point in time. I don't think he wants to go to Detroit, and that was a team that was actually showing interest and could actually flip something toward the end of their roster, a young guy at the fringe of a rotation, to the Bulls potentially in a deal. And look, you got to remember the Bulls were really upset in that press release, putting the entire responsibility and onus on Clutch Sports and Zach for making that decision at that time, because the Bulls didn't feel like that had to be made yet at that time. And you look again, it doesn't seem like it's going to be the Pistons. You look at people, the Lakers are always in the headlines. The Rockets are a team that I think has a little pressure to win. Certainly in a lot of young talent, but they've fallen by the wayside after being a rumored destination previously. So it's like, who's he going to go to? It feels like eyes are always going to turn to LA at some point.
All right, well, that brings us to this from the LA Times, that this just came out. I don't know how well you know their LA Times Lakers beat writer, Dan Woike.
Yeah, he has Chicago ties, I believe, as well. He's a very respected writer across the NBA.
Well, Dan says The question's been asked to people all around the NBA since it became clear the Lakers roster next season would be idling in neutral. What would you do if you were Rob Pelinka? And he said scouts, personnel executives, and even rival GMs have been asked for their feedback. For most of the summer, while the answers have had some subtle differences, the general sentiment is usually the same, that being they're stuck. And if there is a solution, it's not a perfect one. And there are several examples here from unnamed respondents. And he said this West executive, who understands the Lakers situation pretty well for someone outside the organization, said he'd point them in a direction they were rumored to be headed 10 months ago. He said, this conversation really surprised me. Quote, I'd call Chicago and make a move for Zach LaVine, the executive told me. And he said, after gasping, I heard him out. Here's the gist of the pitch. LaVine could be gotten simply by matching the money he's owed, getting the Bulls out from underneath a contract likely to last through 27 and the cost of the team $138 million. It allows the Lakers to keep their draft assets for a future deal or the inevitable rebuild. It would cost the Lakers D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, and either Jared Vanderbilt or Gabe Vincent. A big cost in talent. Team can't take back more salary in a trade that it sends out. There's questions about that. This executive said the Lakers need to acknowledge the roster isn't good enough to win a title. LaVine, a volume three-point shooter, would give the Lakers another scorer on the perimeter, counted on to create his own offense down the stretch. The downside, injury concerns, there are a ton of them, and a lot of projection as to how LaVine would contribute in a lessened offensive role with more need on the defensive end. But he said having LaVine's big contract number in a year or two could be helpful should the Lakers put their future picks into play for a star.
I love it. I love it from the perspective of the Lakers because that's the type of situation I think Zach LaVine needs to go to where it's clear he's not the top dog, right? Like it's LeBron, it's Anthony Davis. But we just saw the Olympics too. Like LeBron doesn't want to go average 25 points a game. He doesn't need to. He doesn't really want to. He can if he pushes himself every night. What would he rather do? He'd rather, have 18 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists.
He's goddamn 40 years old. Like, let him
Zach
rest.
has a ton of ability to score in LA for them. I think it makes sense. That's all. There's a reason that's always been the top rumored destination. It was also weird when Joe Cowley reported that the Lakers had interest, and then Clutch Sports comes out and goes on the record we're not forcing him there, whatever. It's whatever's best for him and all suitors and everything, like stuff like that. But it's the signs have always been there at some point, and they have. LA's always going to have the pressure of still wanting to make the most out of however many seasons LeBron has left. And Zach LaVine is the attainable all-star right now because remember, the Lakers could have made a run at Trae Young in the summer if they wanted to, and they chose not to. So you move on and look at others and Zach LaVine. But what do you guys think? And what do you think about the proposed talent going back to the Bulls?
I like it a lot. I mean, I know D'Lo's a little bit older now, but Hachimura is another. He's not the most athletic, but he's another one of these guys. He's strong, and he's just a really, really, really. He's an NBA player, and he's one of those guys that you kind of want to have on your team. He can just be kind of annoying sometimes to play against because I feel like I've never seen him screw up ever. I personally love D'Lo just as a player. I don't know how much sense it makes for the Bulls, but I like D'Angelo Russell a lot, and I would consider buying a D'Angelo Russell Bulls jersey just because I think that would be cool.
I think the Bulls would consider buying him out or not playing him for long stretches.
Yeah, and then Vanderbilt or Vincent. If they get Hachimura, they already have so many forwards, so it might have to be Vincent. But
none of them are good, Jason.
Whatever. It gets rid of LaVine. It gets rid of LaVine, and I like D'Angelo Russell. So.
Yeah, it's
So I just like it. I just like the players. I like the names, and I'm so desperate to get LaVine out of here that anything sounds good right now. It's like when you haven't eaten in a while and you come across some really horseshit food and you eat and go, oh, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. But that's how it feels.
Your opinions on this need to come with a disclaimer. You like bums bums more than other people like bums.
He already put Talen Horton-Tucker in the rotation. Maybe
I did.
You also you're predisposed to novelty because you have a short attention span when it comes to these things, and you like mediocre players more than most people do.
It's
so
fun.
This
I don't
may be the
know.
best. This will be a perfect Bulls season. Like, you didn't get to live through the Tim Floyd era, but this may be as close as you're going to get to some of those ridiculous transactions and some of the names that floated through there.
I don't know. I'm kind of excited because it's such a hodgepodge group of guys. It's gonna be fun. I don't know. It's
my
just
worry,
weird,
though,
and it's cool.
and this is really, it's not a true word, but if anything that you do you have to have the right answer to the question: would this push them past the number of wins they want to have to keep the pick that would otherwise convey to the San Antonio Spurs? Because you have to make sure that you don't say that you get this ragtag band of mediocrity that all of a sudden gets a spasm of competence and coaching and decides that they're going to play really hard and be good. And it sounds so self-defeating to say that, but you got to keep that pick.
Yeah, but I feel like it's so contingent on how well the young guys do and what Kobe White does, if he has another big year, if Patrick Williams takes a step up. And that's if LaVine goes and they get this package back, seeing what Patrick Williams can do without LaVine on the floor and being a more valued scoring option, especially without DeMar anymore. And I think it's so dependent on that. But at the same time, I do fully understand that concern. I don't know. This is so weird. This team is so weird. Can the Bears just play already? I never thought I'd say that, but here we are. Bears.
The other important thing of that, the Bulls got to get off Zach LaVine without giving up draft capital. That seems like it could be a path to do that at some point with the Lakers. In a way, it might not be a path with many other teams that are asking, hey, give us a first-round pick and we'll take him. So that's important, and that's why these teams seem to be more of a fit than a lot of the others we've bandied about.
So let me ask you this, too, before we let you go, Cody. And if you want to stick around for the showdown, you're absolutely invited to do so, because hilarity can ensue. But we've seen the tapes that have been coming out now from the pro trainer that is helping Lonzo Ball get at least some NBA guys in a run. I have not seen enough, and these are highlights. This is they're only going to show the stuff where he is, where he's hitting shots or he's floating some of the passes. I haven't seen anything that tells me that he's an NBA player at this point. I don't know what you would take away from it.
I watched those. You mentioned the other day. I rewatched them. I agree with you. There's nothing on there that's marvelous athletically. The one thing I would say, if you want to take the optimistic side for Lonzo, it's that, like, he's never been a guy who jumps on his three-pointers like Zach LaVine, right? Like, he's always been lifts a little bit, like, can he get the three-point shot? Like, never a guy going to the rim to finish over people. So, like, some of the highlights and the lack of athleticism from what we see from him in those is that that's never been his game, and we've never really seen him much like that. But the defense is going to be my concern 100% all the time. Can he stay in front of people? I haven't seen anything in highlight videos that suggest he's playing at a speed in which he can stay in front of these dynamic point guards or shooting guards in the NBA for all these teams. So that's what I would want to see if I'm the Bulls in training camp. I haven't seen them in those videos, which is why in general I don't get excited about off-season videos, but why I'm not going to buy into the hype on that one. Yeah, like, I think he could be close to maybe the same player offensively if he can just jump a little bit on his threes and get that stroke back. His brain and his passing ability is still going to be there when he comes back, but he's just not going to be an effective player if suddenly he goes from a really, really good defender, which he was before, to a minus on that end, on a team full of minuses on the defensive end, or minuses on one side of the ball, or not. The whole entire reason Chicago loved Lonzo is because played unselfish basketball and he was a good two-way player, and the team just didn't have enough of those. So defensively is the concern. And those videos, I mean, I don't know what you guys made of them, but they were just more off-season videos.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And I find it interesting that you said when he comes back. So that in a way that maybe does that tell us that he's for sure coming back? I
Me-
mean, he
sorry.
says he is, but what does the team think, and what is
Yeah, I mean,
actually-
I think he'll go into Bulls camp and be practicing and doing things on the floor. I don't know if that translates to the game, and I don't know if that translates to 100% for 2.5 hour practices.
Gotcha.
I guess when I say when, I mean when he's in the building doing more around the team as it practices on a daily basis, and we'll have to see how much that gets ramped up.
And that's going to bring us to the OWC Trivia Showdown.
Let's roll.
Now. Yeah, and I'm going to eat this. You need them that badly that you have to eat them while you're broadcasting?
They're really good.
Don't
The
talk about
watermelon one?
I don't care if they're watermelon.
Hey,
doesn't-
we know
it doesn't
Jason Benetti.
excuse or
Jason, be
mitigate
careful. You wouldn't be the first Jason to get fired for eating on the air in Chicago.
That's right.
Come on, man.
You end up doing Pistons games next. You end up out in Detroit when that happens. Okay, so first of all, let's congratulate our winner of last week's crowd question. I had last week's question. Jason has this week's question. It was a Twitter follower named Damon, who goes by Real Article 86. He answered the difficult question of naming the NBA player whose father played in MLB and the MLB player whose father played in the NBA. The latter would be Trace Thompson, son of Michael Thompson, and the former, this is the tougher one, Shane Larkin, the son of Hall of Famer, former Reds shortstop Barry Larkin. So congratulations to Damon, who is last episode's winner. Now, Cody, I'm going to let Jason get first crack at this stuff because this is technically we are going head to head here. But once he gets it wrong, I want you to jump in and shame him.
Oh, don't be a prick.
And make him feel bad for his utter lack of knowledge. I shouldn't have done this, but Kenny Lofton Jr.
right now. Come on, man.
Kenny Lofton Jr. joined the Bulls.
Is this about weight?
And he's listed at 275 pounds.
Oh, no.
Okay, we know that Andre Drummond...
Cancel Dan.
Andre Drummond just left the Bulls. Andre Drummond is listed at 279 pounds. Talen Horton-Tucker is listed at 234 pounds, which I think is from like 7th grade. I'm going to ask you, Jason, on current rosters, who is the heaviest player in the NBA?
Oh,
current? Oh, Zach Edey.
No.
No?
I don't.
He's like 300.
He's not. He may not count as an officially rostered player until the season starts. Then.
Gotta keep that.
Oh,
I got one.
I thought it was for sure Zach Edey. He's huge.
Yeah, but rosters. Until like the league year begins or until the rosters are filed for training camp, I don't think he counts.
I think I got a name that might be bigger than him anyway.
Okay.
I'm saving it. I'm holding it.
Okay.
Oh.
Still thinking.
Now there is one who would have been tied who is currently not on a roster. But probably will be when all is said and done. I don't think he's going to not be on an NBA roster this season. Anything? And the current
fat people.
The current heaviest player in the NBA does have a connection to the Bulls.
Oh God.
I don't know. My guess is good now.
He technically was never a Bull, but his rights belonged to the Bulls at one point for a few minutes.
Marcus Aldridge is retired and he wasn't that fat anyway.
No, this was a draft day trade. The Bulls drafted this player and traded his draft rights along with another player.
Oh, Yusuf Nurkic. That's it. There it is. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yusuf Nurkic is listed at 300 pounds. Now, the other guy I was talking about is Boban Marjanovic, also listed at 300, who is not on a roster.
I was gonna guess Jonas Valanciunas.
Jonas Valanciunas. Let me check. I believe he's on others receiving votes. As I have it here, number 2 is Jokic at 284. Brooke Lopez is 282. I mentioned Joel Embiid is 280. Then Drummond, and then Valanciunas. Valanciunas is listed at 265. But I didn't know that Wendell Carter Jr. is listed at 270.
He's a big dude. NBA.com has Zach Edey listed at 305 pounds.
Okay. Jason, we might have a winner.
Yeah, no, I win. He's out of roster. I don't get. I'm sorry, Dad. By default, I win. I don't care. Zach Edey is 305 pounds. God, he's younger than Zoe. Oh my Lord. Zoe is my sister, by the way. That is crazy.
Yeah, don't take that any further during this discussion, please, Jason. As far as what we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now you. All right. So your turn. Fire away.
I win. 305 pounds.
I don't know if you win or not.
Hold my beard.
Hey, Zion's worked really hard. He was probably on that list last year.
Yeah.
And he's looking much better now because that's the first name that popped into my head, and then I had to think.
Oh no, Zion.
No, not anymore.
Yeah. If I keep spending as much time down here in New Orleans as he is, I might become what he used to be. All right. So obviously, food's pretty damn good. Obviously, Talen Horton-Tucker, Chicago native, went to Simeon High School.
Okay.
As I know very well.
Yes.
Can you name the other 6 either current or former NBA players that went to Simeon? One of them I don't expect you to get at all. The other ones are pretty good.
Wow. Bobby Simmons went to Simeon. Isn't the kid on the Bulls roster now, right?
What?
Isn't who's the Chicago kid on the roster?
DJ Stewart?
Yes,
no,
DJ
Whitney.
Oh, he went to Whitney Young.
Yeah.
Yep.
Simeon. Oh, did Nick Anderson go there?
Nick Anderson. I feel like you're missing the biggest one by a country mile.
You're missing a couple. You'll get a couple.
Yeah.
You also had a famous radio moment with one of them.
I did?
Did? I don't remember this. I can't believe you haven't gotten one of them. They got Nick Anderson, Bobby Simmons before this guy.
Why? Is he an all-star Hall of Famer?
He has been an all-star before. Yes. Hall of Famer, probably not, but he's he was a pretty good player.
I'm trying to think I was thinking of the old time guys. Like
he's still playing though, but this guy.
Terry Cummings he's not from here.
No. Cody, you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, you want me to say his name?
Oh, Derek.
Yeah.
Thank you. My God, what took you so long?
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah, Derek Rose. Oh my Lord!
I gave you a wonderful hint for the fourth one or one of the last.
A memorable radio moment.
Yeah, I mean,
was it funny? Was it awkward?
It was funny for a fan base that that knew where the next season was going.
Oh, I remember this. I think, yeah.
It occurred. The words were literally said into my literal cell phone.
So you handed the phone to somebody.
And one of them I really don't expect you to get. I don't know if Cody would get it or not. But the other two, I think you should get.
Oh, Jabari Parker.
Of course.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
When he
said
the Bars and Bernstein show he didn't plan to play defense.
Yes, they didn't bring me here to play defense. Oh, well, okay then. All right. The last one, I don't know. Give me his initials.
KN.
Ken Norman? He didn't play there, did he?
He threw me a football one time.
At High Five.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot his name.
Hint: we saw him play in person, and he torched the Bulls one time.
I don't remember.
Kendrick Nunn.
Kendrick Nunn. That's something I threw you the football.
Yeah, it is.
No.
No, Kyle Anderson threw my
That's
camper
what I was
a
thinking
football.
of, Kyle Anderson.
Kyle Anderson threw my camper a football, and one time a football rolled into the area where he was working out, and he threw it back at me, left, and it zipped out of his hand. I don't know if he played football at all.
And I know the game you're talking about. You're talking about the Heat game where
Yes.
Kendrick Nunn
Yeah.
hit like 6 threes in the first quarter, and it was over.
Yeah,
Yes.
and also the other guy was Zach Norvell, played for the Lakers and Warriors for a very short period of time.
Nothing.
But
That's a familiar name now, that only because you say it.
All right,
Yeah, exactly.
now no one answer this one because this one's for the crowd.
Yes,
Jason
I have a question.
This is the crowd question. Now, you get first crack at this because you are listening to this right now. You're going to find at Dan_Bernstein on Twitter, hashtag OWC Showdown, or you can find at
Jason.Bernstein underscore on Instagram
and
message
with your answer.
Yes. So my question kind of relates to the crowd question from last week. So I didn't do a father-son duo, but I did do another NBA MLB thing. So my question is, which current NBA executive played in both the NBA and MLB?
Got it. That's easy.
Well, we'll see how good our fan base is, or how smart they are. But
so yeah,
I just thought it would be fun to kind of go off of that, and also it's the last month of the regular season for baseball. Maybe I should have done something with football, but I just remember what we did last episode, and it popped into mind.
Cody, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Anytime, guys.
Good stuff. All right. Well, that is OWC in the depths of the NBA Bulls offseason. We hope next time we talk, things will be starting to ramp up and we'll get a little better idea of where this is all headed. So like and subscribe and share and interact and rate and all the things you do with a podcast, and we'll catch you down the road.
I love Javonte Green.